The bold and the beautiful reckoning of Hope Logan stood beneath the glowing chandeliers of Forrester Creations, her delicate fingers wrapped around a champagne glass, the hum of celebration rising around her. But beneath the surface of this engagement toast, chaos brewed like a storm behind her eyes. She had nodded yes to Liam Spencer, offering him a second chance, a new beginning. The room had erupted in polite applause, but not everyone was clapping out of joy. Several eyes burned into her back, some with disbelief, some with fury, and others with the weight of secrets she hoped would never resurface. The moment the engagement news hit the design floor, Carter Walton froze. His world blurred. The woman he couldn't stop thinking about, the one he'd convinced himself was moving on, was suddenly tying herself to Liam again. The air in his lungs left him, and within hours, he found himself marching into the design studio, just as fittings for the much-anticipated Legacy line were set to begin. Models paused. Seamstresses looked up. But Carter's focus was solely on Hope. "What are you doing?" he asked, voice low but tense. The room fell silent, every eye darting between the two as if watching a courtroom drama unfold. "You can't marry him, not like this." "Not when your heart's somewhere else." Hope stood still, caught in Carter's emotional crosshairs. "It's not your place," she said, trying to keep composure. But Carter wouldn't back down. The fittings were forgotten, replaced by a raw exchange where every word felt like a gavel striking down. "I've seen you with him, Hope. That look in your eyes, it's not love. It's obligation. Guilt. You're running from something," and she was. She knew it. Carter's voice wasn't the only one in her head. Brooke Logan, her mother, had made it painfully clear where she stood. "Walk straight. Don't look back," Brooke had said that morning. "Liam is your safety, your future. Don't ruin this trying to chase shadows." But Hope's shadows were catching up. Ridge Forrester, ever the protector, wasn't sold on the reunion either. In a private conversation with Liam, his warning was blunt. If Beth stumbles if she gets hurt again, this wedding won't just fall apart. It'll explode. And I won't let that happen. Then came the blow no one saw coming. The door opened, and in walked Steffy Forrester back in L.A., sharper than ever and carrying ammunition that would shatter the fragile piece. "You really think you're going to walk down that aisle, Hope?" Steffy said, her voice like glass. "I know what you did. I know everything." Hope went pale. Steffy laid it all out in one cold, surgical accusation. The shooting, the betrayal, the conspiracy no one had dared imagine. It wasn't an accident. Months ago, when tensions between Steffy and Hope had boiled over, a new intern named Luna arrived at Forrester. Quiet, smart, too eager. Behind the scenes, Hope had enlisted her. She thought it would be a scare tactic, a power move to regain control, never imagining it would spiral into violence. But it had. Luna had pulled the trigger shooting Steffy in what was made to look like a mugging gone wrong. Steffy had survived. Luna vanished. The police were baffled. No one suspected Hope. Until now, Luna hadn't disappeared. She had resurfaced, alive but not free. Facing criminal charges for an unrelated incident, she sat in custody, threatening to expose everything. Her message to Hope was clear: save me, or I confess. Hope had been spiraling ever since, and now Steffy had proof. Not hearsay, not suspicion, but cold, hard evidence texts, voice memos, digital footprints Thomas had dug up after growing suspicious of Hope's frequent disappearances and erratic behavior. He hadn't wanted to believe it, but the truth had clawed its way to the surface. "I didn't come back to play games," Steffy said, eyes locked on Hope in front of the entire room. "Luna's going down, and if you don't come clean, you're going with her." Hope could barely breathe. The room felt like it was closing in. Her engagement was a facade. Her past was weaponized. Her future was collapsing in real time. Carter was stunned. "Tell me it's not true," he whispered, stepping closer. "Tell me you didn't cross that line." But Hope didn't respond. She couldn't. In the corner, Thomas watched silently, his jaw clenched. He had uncovered the truth weeks ago, but his love for Hope had paralyzed him. He had gone to Steffi not out of malice, but because he couldn't carry the burden anymore. Still, seeing the devastation unfold, he felt like a traitor. "I thought I could protect her," Thomas finally said. "But some things can't be protected. Some things have to be faced." Brooke's face was unreadable. She wanted to scream at Steffi, to accuse her of spinning lies, but the silence from Hope confirmed more than words ever could. Her daughter's engagement, her supposed redemption, was built on deceit and desperation. Ridge turned to Liam, whose fists were clenched, eyes locked on Hope with a mix of horror and heartbreak. "You knew," Liam said. "All this time. You knew you were hiding something." Hope looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. "I wanted to move on. I wanted to forget, but forgetting wasn't possible now." The truth had been carved into the walls of Forrester Creations like a confession in stone. Steffi wasn't finished. You manipulated a young woman, turned her into a weapon, and then left her to rot when it got too messy. You're not the victim, Hope. Luna is. I'm pressing charges. No, Hope choked out. You can't. Steffi stepped closer. Watch me. Hope spun toward Thomas. Please. Don't let her do this. Thomas looked away. You already let it happen. Luna's voice echoed in Hope's mind from their last phone call from custody. You started this. Now you're going to finish it. Or I will. Outside, paparazzi were already catching wind of Steffi's dramatic return. Inside, the Forrester empire was collapsing under the weight of scandal. The wedding was over before it began. Liam walked out without another word. Carter turned his back. Brooke was frozen in place, devastated. Hope was alone. Steffi picked up her phone, dialing the detective handling Luna's case. I have new information. You're going to want to hear this. Thomas remained silent. Hope sank into the nearest chair, the walls spinning around her. The fall from grace wasn't gradual. It was a plunge, and she had no parachute. But the reckoning wasn't over yet, because Luna, sitting in her cold cell, was still bargaining, still holding on to the last thread of hope that anyone would save her. If not Hope, then maybe someone else. And as Hope stared into the abyss of what came next, one thing was clear: the truth had finally surfaced. And no one was walking away clean. Deacon Sharp never meant for the kiss to mean anything. At least, that's what he told himself when it happened, when Taylor Hayes leaned in, raw from one of Ridge's many betrayals, and their lips met in a fleeting moment that sparked far more than either expected. But one kiss turned into two. Two turned into late-night phone calls, coffee, laughs, shared silences, and suddenly, they weren't just broken people licking old wounds. They were something else, something new, something dangerously real. Taylor, for her part, didn't want to hide. Not anymore. She was tired of playing second to Brooke Logan, tired of being Ridge's fallback plan, tired of burying her own wants just to protect fragile peace. For once, she wanted to live openly, without apology. And Deacon, well, Deacon made her laugh. He listened. He didn't judge her past. And above all, he wasn't Ridge. She needed that. So when she brought it up, going public, taking this strange, unexpected connection out into the light, Deacon froze. Not because he didn't feel it, but because he knew what came with it. Sheila. Sheila Carter was still in the shadows, still pulling strings from just beyond the edge of redemption. To the world, she was Deacon's past mistake. But to Deacon, she was a living threat. Not just because of who she was, but because of what she knew. More specifically, what she had. A recording. Old, but damning. A drunken night years ago, when Deacon had ranted about the Forresters, about Ridge, about Hope, even about Brooke. Sheila had kept it tucked away like a loaded gun, and she'd never used it. Until now. The moment whispers of Deacon and Taylor reached her ears, she struck. She confronted him in the storeroom of I. El Giardino, smiling like the devil she was. End it, she said, tapping her phone. Or I hit play. Deacon's world tilted. He hadn't just betrayed Brooke. If this tape came out, he'd humiliate Hope, destroy whatever progress he'd made in regaining respect. And Sheila knew it. She was counting on it. So he backed off, pulled away from Taylor, claimed it was too fast, too complicated. Taylor didn't buy it. She saw the hesitation in his eyes and pressed him. Is this about her? Is it always going to be about her? She asked, voice sharper than she intended. Deacon said nothing, but someone else said plenty. Brooke. She had caught wind of the Deacon-Taylor situation through Donna, who had overheard a hushed conversation at the fashion house. At first, she laughed it off. The idea that Deacon and Taylor could be a thing was absurd. Until it wasn't. When Brooke confronted Deacon at his loft, he was mid-sentence trying to explain the misunderstanding when Taylor walked in. Silent, comfortable, at home. Brooke's face dropped, her voice turning venomous. So this is it. First you humiliate me with Sheila, and now you're sleeping with Ridge's ex-wife, the same woman who tried to destroy my family. It's not what you think, Deacon tried. No, Brooke snapped. It's worse. It's a double betrayal. Taylor stepped forward, composed but cold. This isn't about you, Brooke. Not everything is. This is between Deacon and me, but Brooke wouldn't have it. You don't get to rewrite history. You don't get to play the victim. You think Ridge choosing me again means you deserve someone. Is this a rebound or just revenge? The slap wasn't physical, but it hit just as hard. Taylor flinched. Deacon stood between them, unsure who to defend. That's when Ridge walked in. Of course he did. He had heard Brooke was upset. He'd come to protect her, to be her knight again. But seeing Taylor there, looking hurt, vulnerable, yet fiercely alive, stirred something else. Guilt, memories, confusion. Brooke immediately pulled Ridge to her side. Tell her this is wrong. Tell her you see what she's doing. Ridge looked at Taylor. Are you and Deacon serious? Taylor didn't blink. Does it matter? Yeah, he said, voice rough. It does. The silence was thick. Brooke waited for Ridge to condemn it, to shut it down, but he didn't. Not immediately. Taylor deserves to be happy, Ridge finally said. Even if it's with someone like Deacon. Brooke's mouth fell open. You're defending them. I'm not defending anyone, Ridge replied. I'm saying I don't get to make that choice anymore, but it didn't stop there, because Sheila wasn't done. Later that night, Deacon found an envelope waiting at his apartment. No note. No sender, just a flash drive. He plugged it in, and there it was, the recording. His own voice, slurring, ranting about everyone. About Brooke, Ridge, even Hope. And then, clear as day, they're all phonies. If I could burn it all down and start over, I would. If that got out, it would undo everything. He called Sheila. She answered on the first ring. You made your choice, she said. You want Taylor? Fine, but the rest of the world is going to hear who you really are. This isn't love, he growled. It's blackmail, it's reality, she whispered and hung up. Now Deacon was trapped. Taylor sensed it. She could see the panic in his eyes, the weight he carried. She confronted him again, this time away from everyone. What is she holding over you? He shook his head. You don't want to know. I do, she insisted. He told her. Everything. The tape. The threats. The past he thought was buried but wasn't. Taylor didn't flinch. She didn't run. She sat next to him, steady as stone. Then we fight her. Together. No, Deacon said. I've dragged many people down already. If this comes out, it doesn't just hurt me. It destroys hope. Brooke. You. Everyone. Taylor grabbed his hand. It's not your shame anymore. It's hers. Let her burn alone, but Brooke wasn't ready to let go. Determined to tear Taylor down, she arranged a private meeting with Ridge. She laid out her fears, her theories, even insinuating that Taylor was manipulating Deacon to stay close to Ridge. But Ridge didn't bite. He listened. He nodded, but he didn't act. And that's when Brooke realized she was losing him. Not just to Taylor, but to time. The game had changed. The players had changed. and she was no longer the queen controlling the board. At Forrester Creations, whispers of the scandal began to circulate. Thomas found out first through a model who had overheard Steffi talking to Taylor on the phone. Then came Steffi. Then Hope. Hope confronted her father. He broke, apologized, told her about the tape, the threats, the mistakes. "I wanted to be better for you," he said, "but I'm not sure I can be." Hope didn't cry. She stood still, quiet. Then, maybe it's time someone else showed Sheila what better looks like. She left. And hours later, Sheila Carter received a summons. Hope Logan, in person, alone. Across the table in a police-monitored room, Hope leaned forward and said the one thing Sheila never expected to hear. "You don't scare me. You can release the tape. Do it. Let them hear my father at his worst. You know why? Because he's not that man anymore. And if you ever come near him again, I will make sure you're locked in a hole so deep they'll forget your name." She stood. Game over. And then she walked away. Later that night, Ridge showed up at Brooks' house. He didn't say much, just stood in the doorway, staring. She asked what he wanted. He hesitated, then said quietly, "I'm tired of her, of the fighting, of the endless cycles." He didn't explain. Just kissed her cheek and walked away, toward the unknown, toward Taylor, maybe, toward peace. Unlikely. In the world of the bold and the beautiful, peace never lasts, and neither does silence, because even as the dust settled and Deacon held Taylor's hand for the first time in public, and Hope stood a little taller beside her broken father, and Brooks stared at a photo of her and Ridge and wondered when it all began to unravel, Sheila Carter was still out there, and she never forgets a grudge. The boardroom at Forrester Creations had never felt colder. The legacy of decades, the triumphs, betrayals, and scandals that shaped the fashion empire now stood on the edge of a cliff. At stake wasn't just the company, it was loyalty, power, and the truth. Hours before the emergency board vote that would determine Forrester's future, every major player, Steffi, Ridge, Brooke, Thomas, Carter, Taylor, even Deacon, received the same anonymous message. No sender, no subject line, just a video file labeled Sheila Unmasked. It was only 20 seconds long, but it detonated like a bomb. The footage showed Sheila Carter alive, smug, and meeting clandestinely with a figure whose face was turned away from the camera. The audio was clear. Sheila's voice, calculating, cold. Once the vote swings, the rest falls in place. They won't know what hit them. The clip ended with a handshake. A deal? A pact. And just like that, paranoia ignited every corner of Forrester. The first to react was Ridge. He stormed out of his office, fists clenched, barking orders to the tech team to track the source. But the file was scrubbed, anonymous, no trace, no origin. Steffi called an emergency meeting of the family behind closed doors. "This isn't just a threat," she said. "It's coordinated. Someone inside wants to destabilize us, and they're using Sheila to do it." Brooks' voice was sharp. "Or someone wants us to think Sheila's back in the picture, so we turn on each other before the vote." But Taylor didn't buy it. She looked at Deacon across the table. His face said it all, stunned, confused, angry but not surprised. "You know something," Taylor said. Deacon shook his head. "No, I've been clean. I haven't seen her in weeks, but she trusted you once," Taylor pressed. "Enough to show up at your door. If this is real, if she's working with someone, we need you to confront her. Shut this down before it takes on a life of its own." "I don't even know where she is," Deacon muttered. "Then find her," Steffi snapped. "Because if you don't, and this video costs us the board, your name's the one they'll blame first." Meanwhile, Thomas and Steffi worked together to dissect the clip. While Thomas analyzed voice modulation for signs of editing, Steffi took a different route. Her instincts told her this wasn't just surveillance, it was staged. The angle, the lighting, the sound clarity. It was too perfect. She pulled the file's metadata, There it was, a single frame tag hidden deep in the encoding. Studio FC 4.15. Cam to her blood ran cold. Forrester's in-house studio. Camera 2. That wasn't a public meeting. It wasn't even off-site. The footage had been fabricated or, worse, recorded from within their own walls. Someone inside the company was manipulating the board. Someone with access. The stakes rose as the clock ticked down. In the hours before the vote, factions began to form. Brooks sided with Ridge, advocating caution. Taylor sided with Steffi, demanding action. Carter tried to mediate, urging legal restraint. But the damage was done. Trust eroded with every conversation. Eric, still recovering from his illness, was unreachable. Donna tried to contact him, but his phone was off. The patriarch's silence only added fuel to the chaos. And then 5 minutes before the board convened, the door to the executive wing opened. Footsteps echoed. Every head turned. The figure who stepped in wasn't a stranger. Not to the Forresters. Not to the company. It was Nick Marone, the one-time CEO. The man who once nearly wrestled Forrester from Ridge's grip. A former flame of Brooke. A rival. A wild card. No one had seen him in years. Now he was back with a voting share. Brooke's mouth dropped. You can't be serious. Nick walked forward, cool and measured, holding a voting tablet. I was contacted a week ago. Silent shares were being redistributed after a quiet acquisition. I now hold 12%, and I'm here to cast my vote. Who brought you in? Ridge demanded. Nick smiled. Someone who wants to shake the tree. And they just might. Taylor's voice was a whisper. You're the dark shareholder. Nick didn't deny it. Then came the vote. One by one, the board members cast their decisions, fingers trembling over the digital interface. Steffi, Ridge, Brooke, Carter, Zende, Thomas. All votes locked in. Then Nick. He stared at the screen, hovering over his final selection. The air was electric. One vote could shift control. He tapped, and the screen went black. Results pending audit. Tally in process. Gasps filled the room. What the hell does that mean? Thomas demanded. It means we don't know who controls Forrester yet, Carter said. Nick turned to leave. At the door, he paused. Let's just say things are going to get interesting. Cliffhanger. Black screen? End of November.